Welcome to southeastern Oregon, one of the most remote and geologically remarkable landscapes in the American West. In this narration, we will explore the history, geography, and geology of Leslie Gulch and Owyhee Reservoir, a region shaped by volcanic violence, erosion, isolation, and human ambition. Today, visitors arriving at Leslie Gulch often feel as though they have entered another world. Towering rock spires rise from the desert floor. Narrow canyons twist through colorful volcanic formations. The silence is broken only by wind, birds, and the distant movement of water, yet this dramatic landscape is the product of millions of years of geological change and thousands of years of human history. To understand Leslie Gulch, we must begin long before humans arrived, during a time when the Pacific Northwest looked very different from the landscape we see today. Roughly 16 million years ago, during the Miocene epoch, enormous volcanic eruptions transformed much of what is now Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Nevada. These eruptions were associated with the Yellowstone hotspot and widespread volcanic activity across the region. Instead of a single volcanic cone erupting repeatedly, vast fissures opened in the Earth's crust. Lava poured across the landscape in tremendous quantities. Some flows traveled for hundreds of miles. The Columbia River Basalt Group, one of the largest accumulations of flood basalt on Earth, was created during this period. The Owyhee region experienced a somewhat different volcanic history. Here, explosive eruptions produced thick deposits of volcanic ash, rhyolite, welded tuff, and other volcanic materials. These deposits accumulated in layers thousands of feet thick. The rocks visible in Leslie Gulch today are largely rhyolitic volcanic formations. Rhyolite is rich in silica and tends to erupt explosively. The resulting deposits can harden into complex rock units that weather into unusual shapes. As volcanic activity continued, enormous calderas formed. A caldera is a large volcanic depression created when a magma chamber empties and the ground above collapses. The Owyhee volcanic field became a landscape of volcanoes, lava flows, ash deposits, and collapsed volcanic centers. Over millions of years, uplift and erosion began sculpting these volcanic deposits. Wind, rain, freeze-thaw cycles, and flowing water selectively removed softer material while leaving harder rock standing behind. This process created the spectacular hoodoos, pinnacles, towers, and cliffs that make Leslie Gulch famous today. Leslie Gulch itself is a canyon system carved into volcanic rock. The gulch extends for roughly 15 miles from the uplands toward the waters of Owyhee Reservoir. Many visitors describe the area as resembling parts of Utah's canyon country, but the geology is distinctly different. Utah's famous red rock landscapes are largely sedimentary. Leslie Gulch is predominantly volcanic. The colorful formations surrounding the canyon have acquired names such as the Juniper Gulch area, the Honeycombs, and other local landmarks. These formations display intricate erosion patterns that reveal differences in rock hardness and composition. One reason Leslie Gulch appears so dramatic is that erosion has worked along fractures and weaknesses within the volcanic deposits. Water exploited these weaknesses gradually, widening cracks into gullies and canyons. The arid climate helped preserve the resulting formations. In wetter regions, many of these delicate structures would eventually collapse or become heavily vegetated. Here, sparse vegetation leaves the geology exposed. Visitors often notice that the rocks display shades of tan, cream, orange, gray, and pink. These colors reflect variations in mineral content, oxidation, and weathering processes. Long before European explorers entered the region, indigenous peoples lived throughout Owyhee County. Archaeological evidence suggests that humans have occupied portions of the northern Great Basin and surrounding regions for thousands of years. Native communities adapted to a challenging environment characterized by seasonal water activity, rugged terrain, and significant temperature extremes. People traveled throughout the canyons, hunted game, gathered plants, and utilized water resources throughout the region. Seasonal movements allowed communities to take advantage of changing resources during different times of year. The broader Owyhee region became associated with ancestors of several indigenous groups, including communities connected to the Northern Paiute and Shoshone cultural traditions. These people possessed extensive knowledge of the landscape. They understood water sources, migration routes, edible plants, and seasonal patterns that enabled long-term survival in an environment that can appear unforgiving to outsiders. The name Owyhee has an unusual origin. In the early 19th century, fur traders and explorers moved throughout the Pacific Northwest. Among them were men of Hawaiian ancestry employed by the fur trade. At that time, Hawaii was often spelled Owyhee by English speakers. Historical accounts describe several Hawaiian trappers who disappeared while exploring the region in the early 1800s. The river eventually became known as the Owyhee River, preserving an older spelling connected to Hawaii. Over time, the name spread to the surrounding landscape, including the Owyhee County in Idaho, and numerous geographic features throughout the area. The story remains one of the most distinctive place name origins in the American West. By the mid to late 19th century, increasing numbers of Euro-American settlers entered the region. Ranching became one of the dominant economic activities. The wide open rangelands supported cattle operations despite the area's isolation. Life in the Owyhee County was demanding. Distances were immense, roads were limited, water availability could determine success or failure. Homesteaders and ranchers often faced harsh winters, droughts, and economic uncertainty, yet many families remained, establishing ranching traditions that continue in portions of southeastern Oregon today. The rugged terrain that attracts recreationalists also created logistical challenges. Transporting supplies, livestock, and equipment across the region required determination and ingenuity. No discussion of Leslie Gulch would be complete without understanding the Owyhee River. The river originates in Nevada, flowing through Idaho, and enters Oregon before eventually joining the Snake River. Over geological time, the Owyhee River and its tributaries carved deep canyons throughout volcanic plateaus. Some canyon sections reached depths exceeding 1,000 feet. The Owyhee Canyon system is often compared to more famous river canyons elsewhere in the West, yet it remains far less visited. The river serves as the organizing force of the entire landscape. It directs erosion, influences ecosystems, and ultimately led to the creation of the Owyhee Reservoir. During the early 20th century, federal reclamation projects sought to transform arid regions through irrigation development. One of the most ambitious efforts involved constructions of the Owyhee Dam. Completed in 1932, the dam was an engineering achievement for its time. It rose hundreds of feet above the river and became one of the tallest concrete arch dams in the world when finished. The purpose of the project was to store water for irrigation in southwestern Idaho and eastern Oregon. Construction required workers to operate in a remote environment with limited infrastructure. materials, equipment, and labor had to be coordinated under difficult conditions. When completed, the dam fundamentally altered the river system. Behind the dam, water accumulated to form Owyhee Reservoir. The reservoir stretches through numerous side canyons and flooded valleys. Its shoreline extends for hundreds of miles when measured along its many inlets and coves. What had once been a free-flowing river became a large body of stored water. The reservoir changed local ecology, recreation opportunities, and patterns of land use. It created boating and fishing opportunities while simultaneously inundating portions of a historic river corridor. From Leslie Gulch, visitors can now see how water occupies the lower portions of the landscape. The contrast is striking. Jagged volcanic cliffs rise directly above blue water, creating one of Oregon's most visually distinctive settings. Among the most famous features near Leslie Gulch are formations known as the honeycombs. These structures demonstrate the power of differential erosion. Some layers resist weathering better than others. Softer material erodes away, leaving cavities, ridges, alcoves, and tower-like remnants. Viewed from a distance, many formations appear sculpted by human hands. In reality, they represent the cumulative effects of millions of years of natural processes. Rainfall is relatively limited, but occasional storms can be intense. Flash floods periodically sweep through drainages, transporting sediment and continuing the work of erosion. Winter freeze-thaw cycles also contribute. Water enters fractures, freezes, expands, and gradually breaks rock apart. Although Leslie Gulch appears barren at first glance, it supports a surprisingly diverse ecosystem. Vegetation includes sagebrush, bunch grasses, rabbitbrush, juniper, and numerous desert-adapted species. Wildlife may include mule deer, coyotes, bobcats, bighorn sheep in some areas, raptors, songbirds, reptiles, and small mammals. The reservoir provides habitat for fish and attracts waterfowl and other bird species. Seasonal changes dramatically influence the landscape. Spring often brings wildflowers and moderate temperatures. Summer can be intensely hot. Autumn offers clear skies and cooler conditions. Winter may bring snow, ice, and solitude. Today, Leslie Gulch attracts hikers, photographers, campers, anglers, boaters, geologists, and adventure travelers. The area's remoteness remains part of its appeal. Visitors often encounter fewer people than at more famous Western destinations. Rock formations provide endless opportunities for exploration and photography, especially during sunrise and sunset, when low-angle light emphasizes textures and colors. Boaters use the reservoir to access remote coves and canyon walls that would otherwise require long overland travel. The region has also become a destination for scientific study. Researchers continue examining volcanic history, geomorphology, ecology, and land management issues. Much of the surrounding landscape is managed by federal agencies, including the Bureau of Land Management. Balancing recreation, grazing, wildlife conservation, cultural resources, and environmental protection remains an ongoing challenge. The region's fragile soils and delicate geological formations can be damaged by careless use. As a result, land managers encourage responsible recreational practices. Preservation efforts help ensure that future generations can experience the same dramatic scenery visible today. Leslie Gulch represents more than an unusual canyon. It serves as a geological archive recording ancient volcanic eruptions, tectonic processes, and millions of years of erosion. It also reflects human history, from indigenous use of the landscape to exploration and fur trading, to ranching, dam construction, and modern recreation. Few places illustrate the interaction between geology and human activity so clearly. The towering formations exist because of volcanic events that occurred millions of years before humans arrived. The reservoir exists because of 20th century engineers chose to reshape the river. Together, these forces created the landscape visitors experience today. As the sun sets over Leslie Gulch, shadows lengthen across the canyon walls and volcanic spires. The still waters of Owyhee Reservoir reflect cliffs shaped by deep geological time. What appears timeless is actually the product of constant change. Volcanoes built the foundation. Erosion sculpted the details. Rivers carved the canyons. Humans altered waterways and established communities. The result is one of Oregon's most extraordinary landscapes, a place where geology is visible at every turn and where the story of the American West remains written across stone, water, and desert sky.